So it comes as no surprise that working with influencers is one of the best ways to market your product or service online. So what do you need to know when you're working with an influencer? That is, what are the things you need to consider before you engage in an influencer campaign? The first place that I start is with the US Federal Trade Commission's.com disclosures. The FTC has, thankfully for us, recently published their .com disclosures. It's a handbook for social media marketing for any e-commerce product or service. So some of those tips I can just summarize for you briefly. It includes some of the basics, like disclosing that you are engaging in an ad or a campaign or a paid promotion. And what most clients neglect to understand is that the .com rules apply to the influencer, but they also apply to the brand, which means you both have to comply. You can't just hire an agency or an individual influencer and assume that they know these requirements. You have to educate them. What I advise my clients is to actually create a checklist, a simple one-page or two-page document that you attach to a contract, or maybe you embed it into a contract with an influencer that tells them exactly the do's and don'ts of engaging in an online marketing campaign. And sort of a footnote with that is, what kinds of things should these influencers be saying? What can they say? You can't say anything you want to sell a product or service. You still have to comply with the FTC's deceptive marketing rules, specifically Section 5 of the FTC Act. So how do we boil this down into a simple few words? Be honest, be truthful, don't be deceptive, and don't be misleading. That essentially summarizes that entire section of the complicated FTC Act. There's a lot to unpack there. The key here is to be truthful and not misleading. What does that mean? That means if your influencer is using a product, then they can talk about the benefits of using the product. If they've never actually used your product, they certainly can't claim that they're using the product. They certainly can't make unsubstantiated claims about the product. We see this a lot in the cosmetic world, about creams that stop wrinkles and anti-aging, serums and all of that. All of it has to be substantiated. That means there's independent evidence to support your claims. So these are things that are really easy to slip up when you hire an influencer, particularly if you don't do it in writing, which takes me to my next point on working with influencers. You absolutely need to engage any and all of your influencers with a contract. Remember, they are a consultant, or if they're an employee, they're an employee. But you have to do it in writing. Why? Because you want to make sure you own the content that they create. And this gets into intellectual property laws. So you want to make sure whether they're using an outside photographer, they're using your in-house solution, regardless, that any of the content the influencer creates, you own as a company, which means you can pull a campaign without seeking their permission. Or you can set standards for the content, which would allow you to not pay or perhaps pay less than what you promised according to the performance, meaning you create standards. And if they don't meet those standards, you have some sort of consequence for that influencer. So make sure you speak with a knowledgeable e-commerce lawyer or influencer attorney before you engage in your marketing campaign.